Dee la da 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 da. Hi. Hello, chess kids, and welcome to another video full of useful endgames. These ones are all rook endgames, and hopefully you can spot the rooks here in our first position. Rook endgames have a reputation for often being more drawish than like king and pawn endings or king and bishop or king and knight. And today I'm going to show you some basics of how you can sometimes win them and how you can sometimes draw them. So first of all, with one extra pawn, you can often queen that pawn against the opponent, even with the king blocking in front of the pawn, if you can get this nice position with your king and pawn next to each other. This will work if your pawn is in the center or on the bishop files. But it's not going to work for pawns all the way on the side of the board, as you'll see when you see this maneuver that white uses to win. Basically, you need to get this rook to the other side of their king because their rook is only able to defend one side of the king at a time. So we switch over here, and we need at least this much space on the other side of their king to be able to get back here. If the king tries to stop us, check in with the pawn. King is forced over, rook check. We get control of the queening square. We take the rook, and from here on, it's easy. So looking back from the starting position, you can imagine if that we were pushed all the way over to the side of the board, I wouldn't have room to get on the other side of this king, like this, with the check. All right, time for another one. This one here is how you could defend as black before white gets into that position that we just had with the king and pawn here where we would lose. So you have to think, how do we stop white from doing those two moves, right? White's 2 moves away from setting up a position that we lost before. Well, the key is a technique called checking. We're going to check the king from behind with the rook to disrupt white when the pawn and king get here. But it's a little bit tricky. If you go to the first rank right away, your rook likes to be really far away from the king, right? So this is a nice far away spot for the rook, good checking distance. It's not so easy because the king can come up, and when you try and just start giving him checks like crazy from behind, he can go here, and this pawn is now working as an umbrella for the king. Now, we'll understand that better and better as we get further into this, but let me just show you the right move now. We need to keep the king from advancing here. So first we bring the rook back and take control of this. This is called the Philidor defense after André Danican Philidor, one of the great early pioneers of chess theory and study. And now the king can't advance. So if white wants to set up pawn here and king here, which is sort of the winning setup, they would advance their pawn. Now, they're 1 move away from finishing us off. Then they'll be threatening back rank checkmates, and we'll be on the defensive and losing. So we've got to get behind the king right now, prepare to give checks, and now you'll notice the difference in how well we're able to rain down checks on this king when he doesn't have an umbrella, right? He's got nothing he can hide behind from all these checks other than going really, really far away from this pawn, somewhere like b8, at which point he won't be helping the pawn queen. So for example, let's just show a whole bunch of checks so that you believe me, all right? Let me know when you believe me that the king's got nowhere to go. Do you believe me? Nowhere to go? I'm going to send him way out here to get away, right? Now, when he's this far away, for one thing, white's not threatening to win. So you can play any move you want, right? Your rook can go doobity-doobity-doo all around on this rank here. But you can also just go ahead and attack this pawn. And with the king nowhere near it to defend it, you win the pawn, and the game is a draw. Now, one thing I want to show you that's very important is the idea of this checking distance, right? I insisted on bringing your rook as far away as possible. Let me show you why. Let's say the king tries to come forward. Sometimes the king can get out of check by getting close to the rook, right? Ooh, we don't want him close to us. The problem for white is if he comes close to us here, he's going to lose this pawn. So we want to be far enough away that when the king tries to come near us and bother us, he can't defend the pawn anymore. If we tried to do this not from super far away, like here, right, then when white tries to get up there and we go here and here and here and here, we don't have that same checking distance, right? We have chased the king away from the winning square, so we can still hold the draw by going back here and just getting to the far away first rank that we should have been at all along. But you can see how just the rook didn't like being this close to the king as much, right? That was just a little bit less good to be so close to him. So real quick from the starting position, first we need to stop the pawn and the king from coming up. Only the pawn can go up legally. Then we need to get really far away and start checking this king. And that is the Philidor draw. Next position. The black king has plenty of great long distance checking room. However, the white king is in front of the pawn this time, not the black king. So this is not the Philidor, it is the Lucena position. The number 2 most famous rook and pawn name after Philidor is Lucena. And here, because the white king is here, it means that white controls the square they need to queen. There's just one problem. This king, if he stays here, well, the pawn can't actually move there till he gets out. So we need to bring the king out. But what's going to stop the black rook from raining checks on us when we come out? Well, that's what you're going to see. We're going to build a bridge instead of an umbrella this time. First, this guy's too close, right? We can't even step out right now. This rook's covering these. So first we need a little bit of space. So please, excuse me. Thank you. Now we're going to come up and build a bridge for our king. Sometimes this can be done on d5, sometimes on d4. You'll see. So the opponent is, they can play a move like rook g1, rook g2, rook g1, rook f1, king on one of these squares, something like that, right? But either way, it's the same kind of idea. Our king comes out, and they check us, and he comes out, and they check us, and we come here. Now, if black tries to continue with the checks, tries to continue raining them down on us, we have built a bridge. That's right. The pawns are called umbrellas, and the rooks are called bridges when they shelter you from the rain of checks. I don't know why those two different words are used. In either case, you could just call them shelters, right? But this stops the checks, and next move, this will queen. I'll give you one tricky variation, which is black waits with the king here right now because we're not threatening to queen. Now what we're going to do is we can't build our bridge here on f4. We need to build our bridge on f5. But this move here is very risky because of that. You can always mess up a winning game. Even 1 centimeter before the finish line, you can trip and you won't count as the winner of the race. So we're going to carefully check him one time with our rook. He's going to come here. Then we're going to come here. And now black can't stop us from getting behind this pawn and pushing it through. And of course, he can't stop us with checks because we don't care about checks when we have a bridge. Oh my goodness, that one was getting pretty difficult, right? So difficult, in fact, that I've decided to save positions 4 and 5 for a second part to this video. So take a break, take a rest, and when you get a chance, grab a chessboard, a rook, a king, move them around a little bit together, and see if you can absorb some of what we've learned today about how these two pieces work together and against each other. And stay tuned to our YouTube channel for part 2, where you'll get to see positions 4 and 5 of the 5 rook endgames that every chess kid should know. See you then.